Kirk Franklin and Deitrick Haddon, two of the biggest names in gospel music. Both have built powerful careers with their unique sounds, passionate messages, and massive followings. Their music has uplifted millions, and they've each brought something fresh and meaningful to the gospel industry. But sometimes, when two strong creative forces come together, things don't always go as planned. Today, we're going to tell you a story that's been quietly whispered behind the scenes. A private disagreement between these two gospel giants that was never officially announced, but that insiders say left a lasting impact. This isn't something you'll find in a press release or on a headline. No official statements were made. But according to sources close to the situation, something happened. A behind-the-scenes disagreement that took place during a joint creative project. The details were never made public, but if the whispers are true, the tension was real and surprising, especially considering how much mutual respect these two have always shown each other in public. Let's be clear, this is a fictional interpretation of what could have happened, inspired by the dynamics of the music industry and the personalities involved. It's not confirmed fact, but the story you're about to hear is crafted to feel as real and authentic as possible. We'll walk you through how this disagreement may have started, how it escalated, and what it means for their relationship moving forward. So stay with us, because this isn't just a story about conflict. It's a look into how creative differences can shake even the strongest partnerships. It all began with what seemed like a dream collaboration. A well-known gospel production company had approached both Kirk Franklin and Deitrick Haddon with the idea of doing something big, a joint project that would bring together two generations of gospel music. The plan was to create a live album and documentary-style tour that celebrated the evolution of gospel. Kirk would bring his classic, choir-driven sound, while Deitrick would represent the newer, more urban style that connected with younger audiences. At first, both artists seemed excited. They even mentioned in private interviews how meaningful the collaboration felt, and how important it was to show unity in the gospel world. But as the planning began, small creative differences started to show. According to someone who claimed to be part of the early production team, the very first virtual meeting between Kirk and Deitrick didn't go as smoothly as people expected. Kirk came into the project with a very structured vision. He wanted to make sure the message remained strictly spiritual and traditional. Deitrick, on the other hand, was pushing for a raw, more transparent expression, something that blended gospel with real-life struggles and modern storytelling. At one point during the meeting, Deitrick allegedly pitched a song that talked about broken families and mistakes made by church leaders, a bold topic. Kirk, as the source claimed, raised an eyebrow and questioned if it was appropriate for the kind of message they were trying to send. The moment wasn't a full-blown argument, but the tension in that exchange was hard to ignore. One of the assistants on the call later described the atmosphere as polite but stiff. Despite the friction, both artists agreed to keep going. A second meeting was scheduled, this time in person at a private studio in Atlanta. People hoped that being face-to-face would help clear the air and get them back on the same page. But unfortunately, it only made things more complicated, and that's where things really began to shift. The second meeting took place in a private studio in Atlanta, away from cameras, fans, and any public attention. Only a few trusted team members were present: producers, sound engineers, and personal assistants. Everyone walked in hoping for progress, but from the beginning, it was clear that the energy in the room was different. Kirk Franklin arrived early, dressed sharp and calm as always, with his notes organized and ideas ready to present. He believed the project needed to have a clear direction, something that reflected the deep roots of gospel, while maintaining its spiritual focus. Deitrick Haddon walked in a little later, casual but confident, bringing along a hard drive filled with demo tracks. He was passionate about pushing the boundaries of gospel and wasn't shy about saying it. He believed gospel music should talk about real-life struggles, not just church-friendly stories, things like addiction, betrayal, and healing outside the pulpit. As they began reviewing each other's ideas, the conversation turned uncomfortable. One of Deitrick's songs included a line about preachers falling from grace and God still using broken vessels. Kirk paused the track and asked if they could remove or change that part, saying it might send the wrong message. He asked, "Why are we afraid to tell the truth? People relate to honesty, not perfection." For a moment, the room fell silent. Then Kirk replied, "It's not about hiding the truth, it's about protecting the message. There's a difference between being bold and being reckless." Deitrick didn't take it well. He felt like Kirk was trying to control the narrative and avoid uncomfortable truths. From his point of view, gospel music needed to evolve, not stay in a safe box. What started as a calm disagreement quickly turned into a heated back and forth. Voices weren't raised too loud, but the tension was thick. According to someone who witnessed the meeting, both men remained respectful, but it was clear they weren't connecting creatively or personally anymore. After nearly 2 hours of back and forth, the meeting ended without any final decisions. They didn't shake hands, there were no smiles. Both artists walked out with their teams and no one said much. A few days later, people close to the project confirmed that everything was on hold. No new sessions were scheduled, the tour talks were paused, and the joint album that had excited so many people quietly disappeared from all conversations. After the project was quietly put on hold, it didn't take long for people in the gospel music industry to start asking questions. There was no official announcement, no statement from either side, and no social media posts explaining what happened. But in a world as connected as gospel music, silence often speaks louder than words. Slowly, whispers started spreading through studios, churches, and music circles. One producer who had worked with both Kirk and Deitrick in the past claimed that he got a phone call just a week after the failed meeting. According to him, someone from Deitrick's team reached out to discuss possible solo studio time, which was odd, considering Deitrick was supposed to be busy with the joint project. "That's when I knew something had gone wrong," the producer said. "You don't make those calls unless you're walking away from something." Another insider, a former assistant at a gospel label, shared that she overheard a conversation in the hallway between two team members. They were talking about how creative egos got in the way, and how the project was too big to survive without full agreement. She described it like this: there was mutual respect, but they were just two different worlds. One was focused on structure and legacy, the other on boldness and change. That clash couldn't be ignored. Even more interesting were the small, subtle signs on social media. Deitrick posted a late-night story on Instagram with a quote that read, "Sometimes people don't want truth, they want comfort." Fans were quick to speculate if it was a reference to the situation with Kirk. A few days later, Kirk shared a podcast clip where he talked about the importance of guarding the message in gospel music and staying true to spiritual foundations. Again, no names were mentioned, but people connected the dots. Some gospel artists even weighed in indirectly. A younger gospel singer posted a tweet saying, "The new generation isn't disrespectful. We're just unafraid." Others reposted old pictures with Kirk or Deitrick but remained quiet on the situation. No one wanted to take sides publicly, not out of fear, but out of respect. Both men were legends in their own right, and no one wanted to be caught in the middle. Behind the scenes, however, the disagreement was the talk of the industry. Some believed it was just a temporary creative difference. Others felt it ran deeper, a symbol of a larger divide within gospel music itself, tradition versus transformation. Whatever the case may be, one thing became clear: something significant had happened, and it had left a mark that couldn't be ignored. Weeks turned into months, and still, no official word came from either Kirk Franklin or Deitrick Haddon. Fans kept hoping that maybe the silence meant things were being worked out behind the scenes, but those close to the situation said otherwise. The project was not only paused, it was completely shelved. Nothing more was said about the joint album, the tour, or the collaboration that had once promised to unite two eras of gospel music. Since then, both artists have focused entirely on their solo work. Deitrick went back into the studio and, not long after, released a powerful single called Unfiltered Grace. The lyrics talked about being misunderstood, staying true to your voice, and choosing honesty over approval. While he didn't mention anyone by name, many people in the industry believed the song was a subtle response to the disagreement. The track was bold, raw, and deeply personal, exactly the kind of music Deitrick had been pushing for all along. Kirk, on the other hand, continued with his leadership roles in gospel, producing, mentoring young artists, and speaking at faith-based events.